Eleanor, what about these national home prices? They are defying interest rates and cost of living.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Yes, I mean, we've seen that national home prices have now cycled through their 17th consecutive month of growth. Now, that brings home prices up around 7% on this time last year, after climbing a further 0.3% in May. Now, all capital cities saw a rise in May, with the exception of Hobart and Canberra. So certainly we're still seeing that home price uptrend is intact, and we've got this continued mismatch between housing supply and strong home buying demand that is continuing to fuel further price growth.
Brisbane and Perth, particularly strong?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Perth really leading the way and continuing to be the nation's top performing market, with prices in Perth up a little over 20% over the past year, after climbing a little more than 0.7% in May. Now, Brisbane home prices have also continued to record consistent strong growth over the past 18 months. And since their low point in December 2022, after those price falls we saw when interest rates were first rising, Brisbane home prices are up almost 20%. Now, that means that Brisbane is now the second most expensive capital city in the country, on par with Canberra and ahead of Melbourne.
Now, tell us a little bit more about the whole supply and demand imbalance.
Certainly. So we're seeing that we've got this stronger home buying demand environment. We know that that's been fairly well documented. We've got strong population growth, very tight rental markets, those home equity gains of recent years incentivising upgrade activity. But at the same time, we've got a pretty constrained housing supply environment. We know the construction industry has been challenged by higher costs. Costs are up more than 30% on pre-pandemic levels. Labour shortages, higher interest rates as well, putting a dent in project financing or increasing project financing costs. And it's a really difficult environment to get projects off the ground. So approvals, commencements, completions are all at decade low levels. Meanwhile, population growth or net migration gains are at a record high. So this demand supply mismatch is really continuing to fuel continued growth in the housing market.
We saw a little blip up in inflation, just a very slight rise, but you would expect that interest rates would stay on hold on Tuesday?
We're expecting that interest rates are going to remain on hold. Certainly, we've seen that inflation has been, I guess, slower to fall throughout the first few months of this year, maybe than many expected. We also saw that inflation surprise to the upside in the first quarter of this year. But I think that the broad trend is that inflation is moving lower and will continue moving lower over the months ahead into the end of the year. We know that households are really under pressure. Household spending is very weak. We can see that in the retail trade data. And consumer confidence is also pretty low. So we are expecting that inflation is going to continue moving lower. And with the Reserve Bank board being forward-looking in that respect, we'd be thinking that interest rates are going to remain hold.
Finally, we saw some government announcement to do with housing. Obviously, it's clearly in their lens. What did you and the team think?
So certainly when it comes to the government focus on housing at the moment, it really is encouraging to see that there, I guess, has really never been such a big focus on housing supply. And that is really critical, given that we know that vacancy rates are close to record lows in most capital city markets. The rental crisis is still ongoing. The share of affordable rentals has also hit a record low, of particular concern for lower income households, for really whom no rentals are affordable at the moment. At the same time, home prices are continuing to climb month after month with the housing shortage in place. So certainly it is encouraging to see this movement in terms of attempting to boost Australia's housing supply, fast-track approvals and zoning reforms and those bureaucratic processes and the like. But of course, with the construction industry being really constrained at the moment by higher costs for materials and labour shortages, we also need to ease those capacity constraints to really see that meaningful increase in supply that we need, or for the industry to respond to the strength in demand that we're seeing at the moment.
Absolutely. Eleanor, always great to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.